Good evening to my co-hosts and to our audience. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night. Welcome back to our podcast, the Anarcho-Syndicalist Film Club. This week's film is Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, 2011, selected by today's Pip, Yingli Xie. The date is November 28th, 2020, and we are now 19 weeks into this online experiment.
Yay! Okay, awesome. I have a very short list of things we can talk about. Maybe we want to start with the plot. Oh, binary opinions. You're right. Yeah, so let's do binary opinions now.
I give it a thumbs up.
Thumbs up?
Thumbs up here.
I'd give it a thumbs up.
Thumbs up. So everyone.
Wow.
4 thumbs up.
Yeah, positive reception all around. How nice for a change.
Did we have an odd person last week?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe in the short number of movies I've been watching, usually there's like someone with a middling consensus. So we're finding a groove. But yeah.
We're becoming...
Okay, then I'll say
Sheep.
each spy with a thumbs up then. I'll maintain it.
I think, last 2 weeks I was
Yeah.
on the far end a bit of the spectrum, but we'll see this week. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Now are we moving to the discussion? As you can tell, I never remember what's happening. Okay, maybe let's talk about the plot first then, since it was a spy film, or if you could call it that, a story with deception and whatnot. Any thoughts?
I had the most difficult time trying to keep track of everything that was going on, primarily because there's such heavy use of flashback as a device. It made things seem more convoluted than they actually were, I think, which was part of the reason it sort of eked by with a thumbs up was that it was hard to maintain, and I really had to sit there with my finger on the rewind button on my Roku. It was what happened again? Yeah, that was my thing.
I'm glad you feel that, because I thought it was just my brain power not being able to. I was like, oh, am I one of the dumber viewers who can't keep up with this film? But I'm glad Christian felt the same way. Yeah,
I agreed here a bit. I think this film definitely makes you think, or it forces you to keep up with George Smiley and his process. It really throws you into this world where everything is already fleshed out. They all have these relationships and they all know what's going on, and you, the viewer, have to figure that all out by yourself in a matter of minutes at the very start of the movie, which makes for a more difficult watch sometimes. But I think when you slowly piece things together, it becomes more rewarding as you start to understand things that characters are seeing, and you're relating a bit more to the process.
Yeah, I think it makes sense too that in the story, George Smiley has been out of service for a while and was retired from the group because he has those long histories with all of the individuals in the story, but is divorced enough that it makes sense to have those flashbacks or to have the story written in lots of different time periods. And when you flashback, you're not sure how far you're going back to, and you come back to time. I was just thinking that the course of the actual movie, I don't know if it's a week, a month, it doesn't really make a difference because I'm spending a lot more time in Smiley's reflective history.
I think what I did
able to figure it out along with him? Because I didn't know until the very end, and I don't think I've actually wrapped my head around the result and the reasons why it was Colin Firth's character who did it.
Yeah, I feel I followed most things well enough until the whole 5-10 minutes when they were actually getting Colin Firth. I was Wait, I didn't follow how you set up the whole sequence or anything. I didn't feel like there was delivery on that.
Yeah, up until the end, I was kind of wondering if it was going to be like all of them who were the mole. It was a collective mole at the top, multi-mole. Yeah, multi-mole.
But, how many? How many are there?
4.
There's 4 of them. There were 5, including Control.
MM4. Because they love numbers so much.
Yeah, not sure where that comes from. And then they have like the whole other spy departments where people on different floors are like involved in different ways. To the end of the movie, I did not understand what the relationship was between Benedict Cumberbatch's character and the other people in the circus. I just understood they all worked in the spy area in general, but I wasn't sure like who's MI6, who is just like office worker. I wasn't sure.
I think that's definitely one of the drawbacks of throwing the viewer into a world like this that's coming from book series where they have so much more time to flesh everything out, and we only have 2 hours to tell a story here, and so you can't delve into everyone's backstory. So I think a lot of those relationships probably were a little confusing. I did look it up afterwards and look up some of the book stuff. I mean, that's not relevant to the experience that we saw on screen. So the filmmakers made a choice not to include that information, and whether that helps the experience or not is it's up to us to decide, I guess.
I didn't know who Carla.
Oh, yeah, keep going.
Carla. Yeah, Carla. I didn't know who he was until they were talking about Carla. And I guess I thought it was like a British term for the Kremlin. And then I started searching Carla on Google, and I'm just getting the Urban Dictionary of the female named Carla. And I'm just like, so this is not a term? So like I discovered Carla as they were talking about it. So I don't know if that was intentional.
I was confused about Carla. I was like, is this something I'm not understanding through their British accents? So I turned subtitles on. I was like, no, it really is Carla. And so I just had to keep watching to find out.
Yeah, that's a good point. I did have to turn subtitles on because I was like, wait, I don't want to miss something. And I'm definitely going to just like absorb it slowly if I turn the subtitles on, even if it covers half the screen. Did you feel like the moments in the plot were still like rewarding as they solved the puzzle?
There was a chunk of time where I was getting in that groove. It was like, all right, I think it's starting to make sense. And then there's a point where it stops making sense again.
Yes.
I don't know, but I think it's past the hour mark. Oh, I remember. It was at 1:34.
Yes, I know
at
exactly.
1:34.
Yeah, the 1:34.
Yeah, that was like so 7 quarters into the film. It started 7 quarters into the film because it was a 2-hour film. So at 1:34.
Do you mean 7/8?
No.
7 quarters?
Oh, I'm 3 quarters. I'm thinking of 3 quarters. Sorry, 3 quarters. 3 quarters into the film, which is 75%. Sorry, mixing up my numbers.
You're very confident with that.
It's
off-putting.
So 3 quarters into the film, at 1:34, it started to make sense, and then just to reiterate what everyone seems to concur on, at I think it stopped making sense around like 1:50. So in that period of time, I was like, all right, this is sort of enjoyable, and it's all the pieces are clicking for me. So for me, there was like I noted that there was a clear point of time where it started to make sense.
I think I'm in the same boat. It didn't make sense, and it still doesn't make sense to me when he was talking to the minister. That scene, I did not get it. I still don't get it, and but I haven't thought about it. So, can someone explain what happened in that scene? Because he said something about Carla, and maybe I thought the minister was in on it and stuff like that. So I was just confused.
I see. So you mean when they like have that meeting that did not happen?
Yeah,
and they're
the
staring
meeting
at
that
Big
didn't
Ben?
happen. Yeah.
So basically, he knows that like, what's his name? Lacombe or something?
Yeah.
Lacombe. He is funding everything that's happening at the circus. And so that's why they've hired Smiley, right, to like look into them based on what Control has said. So that's why he's reporting directly to them, and he's telling them like, hey, you've been funding this thing by the new circus, but it like here's what here's basically what I found. This is what you sent me out to look for. And that's why he doesn't justify most of what he says, I think, because he's like, this is part of my independent investigation. Like this is the overall finding. And he just delivers the parts from each phase of the people he visits. So he sees like the woman who was fired for looking into Polyakov. So he's like, hey, I know that Polyakov is the person who is at witchcraft. And so witchcraft is based on his own memories. And there's like a long scene on that. And then so he does Polyakov, witchcraft, and secrecy of the new circus. And he like connects all three to say like, by the way, we know for a fact that there is a mole now. Therefore, you have all these bad things happening. I've sussed out that it's Polyakov. Therefore, the plot is probably that it's going up back through Polyakov instead of down to MI6.
Yeah.
But I think it's still,
I guess like as just
for the viewer a hunch.
Yeah, when it happened. Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that there wasn't a mole. I was just hoping that in the end their paranoia and their suspicion and distrust of each other would just tear them apart, and just show that all this system, this whole network of lies and distrust that they've built has just kind of turned them into these like insane people with no sense of truth or integrity or something. I was hoping, we'll probably get into it more later, but I was hoping for something a bit more cynical. But
I think that might have worked better for the author's direction too, because he said that he wanted Smiley to be he wanted the book when he wrote it to kind of show that there's not like a specific moral win with espionage and intelligence, and that there's no like east-west success. Both can be morally successful in his eye. But then people really love Smiley, so he just like totally was not able to control the perception of his character. Wild. But yeah, any other confusing plot points if you want to get out of the way? Otherwise, we can talk about characters as well.
I like the Christmas party where they had Santa Claus with a Vladimir Lenin mask. Yeah. They're all singing the Soviet anthem.
That was funny, yeah.
And then immediately see someone feeling up Smiley's wife.
Yeah.
It was a shock to the system.
Yeah. Poor Smiley.
In the end, they got back together, right?
Yeah.
Or it was implied.
Yeah. She's returned from her long departure from their marriage.
Kind of feel bad for the guy because he's still smitten despite what she's done. But you do you, bro.
I wasn't a fan of that. Of that ending, or just the ending in general.
Oh, the ending. Okay. I'm still confused why Jim shot Bill. Was it just out of rage and being let down by the closest friend, I guess, in the agency?
Oh, this is interesting to discuss. So I watched that scene twice back, and the first time I didn't notice it, but the second time when he shoots him in the face, it like the blood goes down from his eye like a teardrop. And so it seemed to me more like a brotherhood moment, like they both are in agreement, or like they were inseparable. And Colin Firth's character does show sadness at the fact that Mark Strong's character got shot at all. So I feel like maybe that's the only resolution to their friendship, or more than friendship, that they allude to in the movie.
I thought it was also maybe a mercy kill because the shame of being the mole and like being exposed and going down in history as the mole and like living in, he's not that bad a condition in his prison, but yeah, I thought maybe it was a mercy kill or yeah.
It's confusing.
Maybe, but you could also say that like Colin Firth said that he's totally cool with Moscow. He's like, I'm a leftist. I'm gonna go there and be much happier. And he's getting traded for another mole, right? So he's probably gonna be treated well there.
I just thought it was weird how he was being kept in this house. It looks like it's in the middle of the city. Like it's got this barbed wire fence around it, but behind, in the distance, you can see buildings and normal looking things. And then all of a sudden, Jim's in the woods, and he shoots the guy. Like he's not even in the service anymore. So like this, how does he justify, like the way they wrap that up seems strange, you know? Like I understand the reason why you would want to eliminate the mole like that, but it was just so quick. The way it was used in the film was so quick, and we didn't really see enough of the reasoning there, I think, for it to have made more sense to me.
Mm-hmm. It does feel like a spy moment. Like that moment reminds me of typical spy movies where there's like sudden action for no reason, pow pow. Whereas most of the rest of the movie is more brainy about how decisions are made, despite us not understanding many of them.
Yeah, we don't spend much time with Jim's character. In comparison to the other people, though, we do spend more time with him. But yeah, we barely spent any time. I think just before that scene, we see him in his trailer, thinking or whatever. That's it. And then he was mad at Roach, or saying Roach, "Hey, don't you ever see me again, or don't come, go play with other kids." Is there like a significance between Roach's friendship and Jim? Is there like some kind of something he saw in Roach that is significant? I don't know. It seemed like, since it was like a turning point when he found out that Colin Firth was the mole, then Bill was the mole, so then he said, "Oh, don't you ever see me again."
I thought he liked that kid because he was always watching, and he noticed that kid was very observant. Maybe that was something that he liked because of his spy days. I don't know, and decided to take the kid under his wing. Other than that, there's not much of a suggestion of like why he would do that, besides the kid being like, what do you call it, an outcast.
Yeah, I think it was mostly just he saw himself in that kid. Just yeah, I think it was an easy way for the film to show us that, you know, he's trying to get used to his new life, and he sees this kid who's kind of an outcast, and he has that line where he says, "Us outcasts, something something." I don't remember the exact line, but he uses those two words at least. So I think he like relates to the kid and is hoping to kind of, as you said, take him under his wing.
Yeah, I thought that it was just like it ends there, but then the fact that he just like tells him off after the mole incident is what kind of made me, oh, is there something I'm supposed to be getting here, or is it just like a random spurt of anger that he took out on the kid?
He was in a murdery mood.
I think it all sort of makes sense. I think it's implied that, not only, more than implied, that, you know, Bill was Jim's best friend, his brother, and so,
and they were roommates.
What happens in the year prior is that Bill effectively betrays him to the worst possible degree. Not only does he get him, you know, pseudo murdered, he also gets him banished from the only family he's ever known, and he's forced to live, you know, an entirely new life at, I'm assuming, like the age of like in his late 30s, forced to, you know, assume a new identity and a new life entirely. separate from anything he's known. And so to sort of realize that, concretely, and it's Smiley has this line where he tells Jim that, where he supposes that Jim had always known that Bill was the mole in the circus, but Jim doesn't want to come to grips with that, right? So he wants to maintain that fantasy of Bill being, an actual good guy, his best friend not being a lunatic or, bad guy. And to have his world, come crumbling down in that way sort of, I think, explains a lot of what happens to Jim in the last minutes of the film with regard to him, distancing himself from Roach, not only because he's mad, but I think because he doesn't want him to, follow in his footsteps in the same way, in the same way that he sort of like took him under his wing for that very reason. He sort of wants him to like go play with the others to socialize himself, because otherwise you're going to go down this road of loneliness that he finds himself in at that moment. So it's sort of like a sort of out of anger, but also sort of out of protection for the kid. And then murdering Bill, I think, just makes sense because, I mean, he's sad about the fact that, he's sad and angry at the fact that Bill has betrayed him and that his worst, ideations have come true and have been realized by that point. So I thought it all sort of made sense.
Yeah, and it fits in with the other like character pairs that they have. So they have, I don't remember their in story names, Bill and teacher guy.
Bill and Ted.
Oh my god. But yeah, there's the two of them. There's Tara and Irina. There's Smiley and Anne. There's a lot of, or even Benedict Cumberbatch's character and like his boyfriend, which we see for like 10 seconds. There's a lot of comparison of these very personal relationships and how loyalty, devotion are not satisfied or broken, or in other instances maintained between like Tara and Irina. They're both devoted to each other, but circumstances don't allow them to pursue it. All of the relationships I think that they show are of that sort, that like close paired relationships fail in this movie. And maybe that's what the author was trying to say. Be a spy and life won't work out for you. I think
that's fair.
It's the anti-recruitment video.
He did see it all. He did live that life.
I think so. The obvious comparison is Ian Fleming and his Bond series to Le Carré's Smiley series, and the typical indictment is that Fleming sort of romanticizes the world of espionage, whereas Le Carré sort of gives you the gritty details of what life is actually like. So I think that, that makes sense. They work together well, and Le Carré sort of, that makes sense. Doesn't want the audience to fantasize about this other world, because it's not butt cheeks and breasts.
Yeah.
Martinis shaken, not stirred. Yeah.
Boobs, booze, and breasts. Yeah. No, that's the same thing.
Yeah. There are two of them generally. So
the defense I've heard is that maybe Fleming sort of romanticizes the world, or maybe just, this is the world he knew, and Fleming got the good stuff, good jobs, and Le Carré got like, the gross jobs associated with the world. Yeah.
I mean, it is the two different parts of that world too. Mm-hmm. James Bond is the guy who goes into the field, mm-hmm. Gets his hands dirty, and this story is about the people higher up, the administration, who have to sit around reading ticker tape and shouting at each other in a soundproof room. But yeah, I think we definitely have to. It's definitely good to compare these two. I mean, this film was made a lot later than a lot of the more traditional Sean Connery Bond films. I guess if you can compare this to like the Daniel Craig movies, those do have a lot of action, but they also are a lot more cynical about espionage, about that world than the old films were.
But when were Fleming's books written?
I think the 60s, 50s, 60s.
And
So about the same time frame.
yeah, this was written in the 70s, early 70s. So yeah.
Does that make Tar the like job equivalent of James Bond in what they do?
Seems like it.
He looked the part.
Yeah.
He did. I couldn't believe that was Tom Hardy.
Yeah. Tom Hardy could definitely play James Bond.
He can do it all. He probably can't play Smiley, but
No.
he can play every buff.
We don't know. We don't know. We don't know until it happens.
Maybe he has the depth. I believe in you, Tom Hardy.
Yeah, in like 20 years. I don't know.
Just wait for the gray to come in and he'll be like, okay guys, I'm not a meat shield anymore. I want to do something with a little more heart in it.
So I looked into it. So Casino Royale, which is Fleming's novel, came out in 1953, and his first Bond novel came out in 1953. So I'm assuming that he left service at the latest in 1952, right? And this is during not the height, but while Britain is an empire he's operating. And Le Carré's book, Tinker Tailor, is published in 1973, which is certainly past the Suez Crisis, so past Britain's heyday as an imperial power, which is, I think, also something to consider. Maybe when the two books, source materials were produced, which is, Le Carré's writing and producing in the aftermath of London's imperial hangover, and so has a more sobering vision of what everything is like.
Yeah, I mean, James Bond films traditionally have that colonialist view of the world. Like he goes into this underdeveloped world and he exploits the natives and the foolish natives who don't know anything, and he goes in bare chested and shows them how to get things done. I don't know. James Bond definitely is a lot more attached to that colonial feeling and that same time, the time period of the British Empire's disintegration, than Tinker Tailor is a lot more closely with the East-West Cold War after that anti-colonial kind of sentiment had passed a little bit.
I guess it was more fun.
It like even addresses
colonials when they were an empire.
They were having a real party.
They were having a real party when they were in power. Now it's like,
Don't they have a line about that? That lady who when the one who got fired, she's like, "Those were the days," and he's like, Smiley's like, "It was the war."
This woman yearns for the good old days because back then she would, have coitus on the regular. She knows that by then she's seriously under-effed.
I think
so maybe she's just longing.
That was part of her introduction when she was talking to Smiley. I was like, is that how you greet people?
They're all pals, if you know what I mean.
Come sit
what a
next
wild
to me
time
on the bed.
in MI6. And they're just sitting on the sofa watching two kids make out. I was like, what is happening?
Does she live in a university dwelling
commune or
situation?
something? I don't know.
A commune?
I thought it was her place because
and then she just rents it out.
The street post near the street says Saks, which is her name. But I got the sense that it was a nursing home, but why would there be young kids at this nursing home? So comparing
community service.
I don't know, but I think she owns the place and not lives there, or nurses there.
Maybe it's like a motel or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
BB.
Bed and breakfast.
Mysterious.
Bed and breakfast.
for teens, where the youth practice
Mhm.
their plays outside with their swords and their
I
costumes.
thought they were LARPing, but then I realized they were doing they were rehearsing.
In our hearts, they can be LARPing. But
I
yeah,
just
like
wa-
what Sheldon was saying earlier about. Oh, sorry.
No,
Okay, I will wrap up my thought. Basically, like what we were saying about how like this movie looks the other way on the British colonial history. The whole premise relies on the fact that the higher ups in the cabinet need to recognize that they are not a power anymore and that they are being used by the Kremlin to get American intelligence. And so everything hinges on Smiley actively acknowledging that and like being willing to confront his funders basically with that information. So it's very much it directly tells you like, hey, this is the point of view. Britain, get your shit together. Like this is where we are in the world now. You can't pretend that it was the heyday. Yeah, everything hinges on that.
I wish they played that up more. You know, I think earlier when I was saying I wish there was more cynicism in the movie, that was something I was hoping for. You know, definitely contrasting this sharply with the James Bond series, and really just showing how much of how much the world had changed since the days of empire, the days of glory. You know,
Days of Elizabeth II.
The
Queen of Jamaica.
Oh my goodness. Today.
She's
maybe
still,
maybe they just don't want to play that up, you know. It's a sense of denial. So maybe
I don't think in 2011 there was any more denial about it.
We don't know. I feel like people still cling into the good old days no matter what.
I don't remember who. I think it was listening to a podcast. I think it was Jamila Jamil who said something about how the whole British sense of humor is based off of, you know, the disintegration of their empire. Because, you know, how
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they used to rule everything. Now they have this tiny island where it rains all the time. They had the hubris to think that they could leave this island and control everything, and then they were swiftly kicked back into the little dingy little island. I think the British people are aware of how much they've lost in the past 100 years, how much damage they've done to the world.
But they don't want to make a movie out of it, though. That's too much, right? Making a movie out of it versus joking it with your fellow blokes, your fellow Brits, your mates, is different from proclaiming it in a movie that everyone is going to consume. So it's like you would make fun of Americans, like to make fun of America with Americans, but when they go like travel abroad, they're going to be a little more defensive about the United States.
I mean, have you ever seen?
But Americans don't make fun of America. So.
Oh, that's true. Americans who make fun of America will still get attacked by other Americans.
Yeah, so it's not the same. But I don't think they do have that sense of humor, but I don't think it translates through all of their media.
I don't know. I mean, the British Empire fell pretty clearly in 1956 with the Suez Crisis. And that's what? How long ago? Like 60 years ago. That's 60 years ago. And the US's empire is, you know, it's still in its prime. It's a soft empire, but like I mentioned 2 weeks ago with the 2001 and the decline of the American identity, I think that's something that Americans are trying to grapple with more than the British are, partly because the British sort of understood, as Nasser claimed the Suez for Egypt, that, you know, their stake in the world was no more, and their queen meant, you know, nothing. by the Elizabeth II is no Victoria, and in a way
but she's alive.
but in a way that in a way that Trump is sort of like a poor substitute for Reagan. But even that comparison is sort of faulty in that, as president, he still holds, significant amount of power,
unfortunately,
and influence, even though he doesn't want to do anything with it or, do anything good with it. Let's not make this podcast political.
Yeah.
Let's not make this anarcho-syndicalist podcast political. But I think the film has more to say to Americans in 2011 than it does to the British. I don't know if you have thoughts about that, but I think as Americans are sort of grappling with what it means to be a superpower, a great power, even on the decline, the British by 2011, I feel, are more, that's the way it is. I don't know if you have thoughts.
Definitely. I mean, I skimmed some reviews from when this movie came out, and people who were I wouldn't say at that time even that right wing in 2011 were furious at this movie. They were like, this is so horrible. How could you possibly portray the Soviets as having any legitimacy? But like, it's a very neutral movie to me, more like in political ideology. I don't know how that argument can be made that it's like an insult to right-wing policies.
I feel like that
even
speaks
people in the
more
community were grappling maybe
about the reviewer than the actual movie.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe even since then, since 2011, some people have had their butts kicked about that in the UK. And that was a very small voice when the movie came out too, coming from the UK. So it is sounding off all the things we said, where most people seem to have recognized that the British Empire is no more. There's that small population that is striving to be a colonialist power, but it's just not part of their history. The US still seems to have this concept that huge global power is like favorable and something they want to pursue. So I wonder, if more people our age were watching this, would they notice those very gentle political undertones? And I would say it's extremely gentle. It's very forgiving.
Yeah, I think this film doesn't have as much to say about the global politics than it does the particular intricacies of this this mystery that was unraveling. I think it was definitely set against that backdrop, but it was more of a, I don't know. I think for the casual viewer, they're probably not going to think about, definitely not going to think about all of this. Maybe it'll impart something subconsciously, and they'll wake up sweating one morning thinking, oh my God, we're no longer a global superpower, and fall back asleep and have no recollection of that moment. But yeah,
it was already hard enough to keep up with the film. So
I feel like in most films, I don't think you're looking for like something going on with the super ego. I think you want something playing with your unconscious. I think that's always been sort of the point. It's not to change your mind in that moment, but have it playing in like the back of your head while you're sleeping.
To lay the eggs, to plant the seeds.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Much like Bill did in Anne.
Whoa!
Oh, I get it.
Cut that.
You're nasty.
Oh my God.
I have one more small note, which is that if you look at the architecture of the circus's architecture, it's very cool, British Imperial, and it's mostly the facade that looks that way. But when we're on the rooftop, you see like everything. So like the edifice is constructed to look like it might be an administrative building in Delhi, India. But while they're on the rooftop, you see like the back of it is like there's gravel on the floor, and it's like Bauhaus sort of functionalist on the back. So I think there's something to be said about subconsciously or unconsciously sort of ramming that into your audience's psyche.
I did like how the film didn't use on-screen location titles.
Mhm.
You know how like a lot of movies
Yeah.
do like it blips like Istanbul, Turkey.
Yeah.
Like
Keeps
this one
you
just
guessing.
it doesn't. You don't really need to know like exactly where you are. Like you're in a different setting.
Mhm.
I mean, they threw in the Eiffel Tower in the corner of a shot, so anyone who is decently well informed might know that you're in Paris. So I liked how it didn't. This film definitely didn't treat the viewer like they were an idiot.
Did we get timestamps too? I don't think so.
No.
Did we get timestamps? Like I think there's shots of clocks or somehow some way to tell time and stuff like that you kind of just get as you watch it. It's nice.
I like how
not
it
being called dumb.
Yeah, it assumes that the viewer is smart enough to piece things together. Yeah, giving the viewer that credit is sometimes rare to find.
I find that when they do that, when films do that, I'm generally I don't want to say less informed, but I spend more time like thinking about the font itself. I'm like, whoa, why did they pick that font? Than like taking in Istanbul, or is it Istanbul?
Constantinople.
Yeah, but I think I want to pull back to my very first comment, which is like I think it assumes a bit too much on the part of our intelligence or ability to comprehend things, because I would like some hand holding. I would have liked some hand holding in this film.
Do you think it was like the lack of information about the other characters and stuff that avid the series readers was it like a gift to them that like, hey, look at you did your homework and then here's the payoff? It's easier for you to figure out the film as opposed to someone like us who
it could very well be, because there was the BBC series, right? And that was so popular. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're assuming British viewers would be like, yeah, cool, I got this.
Yeah,
but
if
I
it's
can
the
also
BBC,
see it
right, it's for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Like, also they had what's his name? Obi-Wan Kenobi as the main actor, right? So like they were it wasn't like one of these BBC things. There's a lot of BBC things that just kind of like go under the rug, but it seems like it was highly popularized and shared widely. So I mean, it was a commercial success, the miniseries. I didn't think that was why they didn't mention like time or any of that. I thought that was to be more reflective of like how Smiley probably has to go back in his own mind. Like the movie does not feel viewer friendly. The movie feels like when they don't give you those hints, they're like, oh, you didn't figure it out? Too bad. You're probably not as smart as Smiley. Go watch the movie again.
I'd agree. So looking at the awards that this film won, it didn't win many. It was nominated for a bunch in the US awards circuit, in Denver and Chicago and Hollywood.
Did it win San Diego? But it
won a lot. I don't know about San Diego, but it won a lot of British awards and it won a lot of European awards. And I'm just assuming that it just makes more sense for people who sort of are more familiar with
they were like, screw the non-believers,
right?
If you're not a fan, you're not a fan.
Yeah.
If you're not smart enough, you're not smart enough to figure this film out. So screw you.
Not to put this on the same level as the Avatar movie, Last Airbender, but like I wonder if there is that similarity in that both are based on previous fully fleshed out worlds, and someone who is more familiar with that world could understand what is happening in the story.
But Katara is narrating our way through that film, whereas Smiley think was, right? Katara narrates unnecessarily in that film also.
That film treats you like a child.
Yeah.
It dumbs down the world. Whereas
this
one,
So I guess, in a sense, I would have, so maybe sort of backtrack, and I would have preferred, I guess I liked sort of what it did, I guess, in its being sort of like a fan film as opposed to a generalist film. I don't know.
Yeah, I wondered then if they had slowed it down or gave more like speaking lines. I think the power in this movie too is that there's so much communicated in the actor's body language and in the way that the scenes are shot. And so they do so much without language. For us to not know the story is kind of our loss, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And the art captured and the style of the scenes is so much stronger for somebody who understands everything. But I would actually prefer to know less and appreciate more from the confusion, because I do think part of the espionage in Le Carre's story is that it's not so simple. James Bond doesn't just figure everything out, pursue the villain, then win after he catches him. You know, there is confusion, mystery, and mistrust in everybody.
Yeah, I guess the way the
really
story
the
was
character
told,
who like,
right?
oh yeah, that's her.
Oh yeah. So the way the story was told is like, as we've said, is like through Smiley's piecing things out, and we felt that because they could have just said, okay, you're seeing this through Smiley's reasoning, but he could be narrating every single thing that he does, and it doesn't feel like you're trying to piece it out. So they were able to make you feel as if you're piecing out the story too, instead of just showing that you're piecing it out, but you're feeling confused as a spy would when they're trying to solve a mystery. So I guess the feeling continues. I guess the first scene, if you remember the first scene with just Smiley, the long after controls, after he leaves, I was like, oh my gosh, just like this very long sequence of him doing stuff. But it kind of puts you in the mindset of, hey, this is what you're going to be doing throughout the film. You have to be a little more observant, because you got to know, if you were paying attention, you got to know a little more about Smiley throughout that long sequence. You find out that he got letters from, like, Anne got letters, so he must be living with someone named Anne, and he's married to a woman named Anne Smiley, without being told that he was married to a woman named Anne Smiley, and other things that he was doing. So he was introduced without any lines, but you got to know his character. So I thought that was like an interesting way to start off the movie, where this is gonna be what you're gonna be doing. Get used to it.
Yeah, it's the what do they tell you in like primary school, right? Show not tell when you're writing, and it's very evident that that was translated well into the film. And for me, it didn't make me dislike the film so much that I wouldn't watch it again. Like, I would very much consider sitting someone down who had like never seen this film before and watching it with them, because I think I would still find it engaging. And that's a win, rather than being like, I didn't understand anything and I'm never going to see it again because it was too confusing, which is me often.
Watching this film, I was kind of reminded, I watched Knives Out again a couple months ago, and I was just thinking, comparing the two, the ways that the two mysteries kind of unfold. Knives Out definitely is tonally very different from this one. But I think, we were just talking about with Smiley, definitely the way that this film unfolds is a lot less. It's not a fun mystery that needs to be solved. It's how do we show the kind of deep-seated things that are going wrong with this system, rather than who killed who, when and where, and with what. I thought it was nice to have a mystery, to watch a film like this where the mystery is a little less clear-cut.
Yeah, there was no Mr. Green in the library with the rod, but there was Mr. Smiley, the beggarman, and all of Europe, question mark? Well, that's all I had that I want to talk about, and being cognizant of time. I wanted to ask if anyone wanted to talk about more visual stuff or soundtrack. And my internet connection is unstable, apparently. So if I disappear, it's because my Wi-Fi cut out.
No.
Sounded very neo-noir. I thought, high sex. I don't know how I feel about it. I think I noted that I didn't like it at one point, and then I think I sort of felt indifferent at another point.
I think that's exactly how I would describe it as well. Yeah, it was very noir inspired. A lot of discordant jazz. Yeah, I did like the opening title scene though. Where it's after they get dismissed and they go their separate ways, and we get that nice little sequence of Smiley walking and doing things, and then you get the titles, and then there's the jazzy music. I thought that was a nice way to open it. But then, yeah, the score just kind of devolves into the normal textural schlock. Yeah, it wasn't that bad. There's this interesting use of like electric guitar and like synths as well that were placed throughout the movie that kind of jolted me. The instrumentation was interesting.
Did anyone have feelings about the song in the ending montage?
What was the song?
What was playing? I don't remember.
It's La Mer.
La Mer?
La Mer?
La Mer.
Oh, it's French.
Was it Debussy?
No, it's Julio
No.
Iglesias.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm
That
sorry.
does not sound like Debussy. I don't remember it.
The only La Mer I know is Julio. Who's Julio Iglesias?
It was a cover of
Is Latin American singer?
it was a disco cover of like a more traditional pop French song. From like the
yes.
50s.
Isn't it a French
Yes,
song
I recall.
sung by a Spaniard recorded in
Yeah,
Russia or something?
because Julio Iglesias is Spanish.
I had to turn on the volume. It was.
I didn't notice any of the music except the opening sequence at the end.
Yeah.
And when the music started playing, I was like, whoa there. Excuse me. Wasn't expecting this.
It was.
That was the most weird feeling moment to me. Like it felt like the movie was wrapping up and that they were like, okay, this is what movies do. Let's play a happy song. And tonally, maybe that's the right move to make so people don't leave your movie like, I want to go cry. But it felt just really weird because everybody has like kind of a poopy life when the movie ends.
Not Smiley. He gets his wife
yeah.
back, and
We get a
he's head
smile
of
out
the
of Smiley.
circus.
Oh yeah.
Does he smile at
I
the
still
end?
don't like the ending where he just takes her back.
It seemed like very it seemed like the ending of The Godfather to me. At least I wanted it to be more like that. It was like the ending of The Godfather, but with a weird positive twist on it. Have you guys have seen The Godfather, right?
I've only seen part 3. I heard it's the best one.
Definitely a lie.
I've seen parts 1 and 2. I watched the what they did a weird, and I don't know what it's called. They like pieced the parts together so that it was all chronological instead of having the weird flashbacks between 1 and 2. I think it was like
5-hour special.
Cable special, yeah.
Oh my goodness! But any of that movie, we have Michael, who's taken over his father's position, and the door's closing, and he's shown taking control of the family business. I was hoping for a more cynical ending, but instead we have Smiley and what's his face, Benedict Cumberbatch.
Peter Gwilym.
Yes, Peter.
Peter Gwilym.
We have them they kind of like nod at each other as they pass, and he goes into the soundproof room. And with that music, a lot of times movies will use that kind of joyful music in like an ironic way, to kind of to give the viewer some sort of like discord with what they're seeing and what they're hearing to make them feel even more uncomfortable. But in that particular instance, it did feel like it was all wrapping up so quickly and so nicely. They were Smiley had triumphed. He was getting his job, even though at the start he says, "I'm retired." Maybe that was some kind of setup and payoff kind of thing. But yeah, that song I think ran too long and was involved in the film wrapping up too quickly.
Yeah, because they also have Mark Strong shooting Colin Firth with that song. So I'm like, there's a discordant moment, but then you also have the happy moment right at the end. And I'm like, you can't play the same song for both of this. It just feels weird now. I don't know what you wanted me to take away from this.
It's just like in Godfather when he has this like the same music when he's like at church and it cuts to all his guys shooting the other mob bosses, and then it cuts to him baptizing his child or whatever.
Yeah, but in those scenes, it feels like the theme across all of them is that like I'm in control and I'm in power. So I feel like thematically, it's all one thread, even if the moments aren't the same emotion. For this one,
Oh no!
thread, there are multiple scenes in the same song.
We thought we lost you.
Yeah, we thought
did I
we
die?
lost you.
Did I turn into a robot?
It was a second.
Oh no! I
Skynet took over.
returned. Yeah, that's what it's like living in California.
But
Dying robot.
is it not the case with these two scenes?
Yeah, robots. Well, maybe it's because
Sorry.
Yeah, keep going, Christian. No.
Wait, I want to hear about the robots.
No, it's just because I work in a like menial tech job, so everyone's always talking. Like all my other friends from college only talk about how we're sad our phones are spying on us, and joke about the robots, even though my major is the one that is like making the robots.
Shame.
Continue.
Zara's also
No.
not robots, but
do not expose me.
Zara's also in that line of work.
Well, I, for one, would like to put on the record that I welcome our robot overlords when they hear this podcast in the future. Please treat me with generosity and mercy.
So,
May they find it in their robotic heart too.
Yeah, if they find it, if they have.
But I think I don't know if it's so different, those two scenes with Jim Prideaux and George Smiley, in that they're both doing something I get the feeling that they don't really want to do. It's sort of bittersweet, I think. George Smiley re-entering this world that's caused him so much strife. And, you know, Jim obviously having to kill his best friend, or not having to, I guess, but, you know, he's forcing himself to.
I think the direction could have been better there, because cutting to show Peter's face as he walks by, he's very happy, and having that moment when we could instead have another shot of Gary Oldman's furrowed brow before it cuts to black, might have been more powerful. Yeah, I do agree. I think definitely if they had played it up more, that he was reluctantly in this position, that, you know, he was retreating to the world that the only world he knows. If they had cut out the part where he reunites with his wife, just that little dash of sugar at the end just wasn't what the film needed. Or
isn't that also sort of, I don't know, bittersweet too? You don't see them like embrace, I don't think. You just see her, you know, legs.
You don't even see her face.
Right. And he just like walks into the dining room and you assume they embrace. But I get the feeling that, you know, he's sort of, I mean, I don't know. It's like she's returned on the one hand, but also he knows that she's, you know, an adulterous. But
oh my goodness.
But like she's returned, but and so he's happy that she's returned, but he now knows, or he's now more cognizant of the fact that, or she might leave him again in the future. I might be reading too much into it, but or just trying to stuff in the explanations to the three scenes. But that's my interpretation. That's how I would like
it. It feels very bittersweet. Yeah. And then they end to me on what is supposed to be the sweetest one, because they have Benedict Cumberbatch and Gary Oldman smile. But if they had both been brow furrowed, as Sheldon said, then I would have seen it more of like all three scenes connecting to the sense of duty, right? But I guess it could be said that they are still about duty. Maybe we're just being really hard on this song because it was the only song we noticed.
I mean, like, they chose that song to be noticed.
You
don't choose a song like that and play it that loudly and expect the viewer to not think about it.
That's true. Neato. Well, that's all I had for discussion points. If anyone wants to bring in any last minute thoughts, please do.
Does anyone have any interpretations on what the meaning of the end credits is?
What happened in the end credits?
Yeah, what happened?
The words move from the right side of the screen to the left side of the screen.
I didn't even
back
notice.
toward the middle. It was very strange. Like,
was it subtle or was it overt?
No, they start on the right, almost like, you know how like in films with blooper reels at the end, They have the names on one side and little picture in picture on the other. It was almost like that, but the words slowly shifted across the screen. So like the whole column just kind of moved across the screen and then back toward the center by the end. It was very gradual, but it was
yeah, I was wondering how quickly that was happening, I guess was the question.
It was just a PowerPoint animation.
No, not like the DVD player diamond that bumps around the screen, not like that.
I don't know. I wasn't even.
I mean, at best, maybe. Yeah, I was already checked out. This is one of the movies where I did not watch the end credits. But if it's a weak interpretation, given how they move the text in the opening scene, maybe it could be said that it's representative of like the morality in the book, the like political morality that they talk about. Plus, in the second half of the film, they have that one line that's like, "We're not so different. We've both spent our lives looking at weaknesses in other systems. Don't you recognize that there's like nothing worthwhile in mine or yours?" So I don't know. Maybe they leaned in hard and they were like, "Let's have some fun with the end credits to single out our pro any side of the political spectrum friends."
Yes, it was symbolic of the moral fluidity of espionage work. This is definitely one of those reading too much into things.
Reach.
Again, they did choose to make the credits weird.
Maybe they just wanted to show off. Like, look what we do. Right, left, middle.
11.
I bet they were pulling a Children of the Corn. They were like, "Look, guys, we can make the corn blow up. We can make the words fly across the screen."
There's another, I think, symbolic image that was interesting was when George Smiley and some other unnamed white men go swimming in this filthy river. I thought that was, I don't know if people actually did that. It looked.
Was it a river or was it like a hot spring?
It looked kind of like a little pond.
Just a.
I thought it was a river.
It was
That's
a
how you
river.
get tapeworms, right?
Ew.
It was visibly brown. Yeah. I was comparing it to skin. I was like, "Oh, that's nasty."
Thought it was like a spring because it's like seemed like a cold place with a hot spring would be nice.
I just thought it was, it could be like, symbolic of the dirty nature of their work, how they have to immerse themselves in this web of lies and.
Maybe, but by the first time he's forcibly resigned from that world. I don't know.
So he still immerses himself willingly.
I don't know.
Even after he retired, which I guess foreshadows that he is actually going to be involved again.
I'm kind of hesitant on that interpretation.
It's the swamp.
Just reach.
Swamp.
And we have to drain it.
So
he's going to drain it by absorbing it through osmosis through his skin.
Yeah. You can compare that dirty water to, I think the only other time we see, I might be mistaken, but the other time I see like water being prominent is in the shower scene with Percy, Lacan, and the minister of I don't know what that
minister
office is. Yeah.
Just a minister.
And that water is very clean. You see it. I mean, it's meant for showering. It's for like the top brass.
Yeah, we see half a naked man.
Yeah. The back half, fortunately.
I thought you were going to say unfortunately.
No.
Sorry, my cat gave me a fright.
No anomalisa moments here.
No. So sad. I was hoping.
I have nothing else to add.
Cool. Then maybe let's move to rating.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Sheldon.
6.75.
Oh. Yingli.
I give it a 7.
Zara.
Gave it a 7 too.
7-2.
No, 7, comma TOO. Wrote it down. I wrote 7.5 first, but I was like, this gave me too much of a hard time, so 7.5.
I gave it 7.190, so it eked out room by that much. Primarily,
like
Primarily-
insane.
Primarily because of the plot issue. 7, neat 7 for us this week.
Siete.
The best film in the past 4 weeks has still been Room at 8. Good job, Sheldon. Maintaining your throne. And the worst film, still Children of the Corn. Good job,
Might be for a
Zara.
while.
Maintaining your... Well, it should reset.
I always deliver with the worst movies.
It should reset next week. So next
Were you
week,
the one who also recommended Chicken Girls?
Yes.
she was.
Was must-see film.
Horrifying.
All right, so that just about wraps up this meeting of the Anarcho-Syndicalist Film Club. There's a lot more to discuss, so offer your comments using the hashtag ASFC on Facebook, Twitter, or your favorite social media platform. Be sure to join us next week as we discuss A Christmas Prince 2017. Catch you on the flippity flip, brother.